Yes.
Now, from there to writing short stories and novels, apart from books on the military. So, what do you see yourself as? As a soldier or an author? Let me ask it, what are the ideas you fought for? What are the ideas you write for?
Now, that's a very interesting question. But now when you ask me whether I've been a soldier 28 years, I've been a writer, I've been writing books, I've been writing since I was 11 years old. Some pretty horrendous stuff in my early days, all right. But yes, I've been writing. And besides that, I have other roles. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a friend, I've been a corporate guy. And all these aspects actually have gone on to make the sum total of what is me, I would think. Mm-hmm. So if you ask me whether I'm a writer or whether I'm a soldier, I would say they're both the same sides of the two sides of the same coin. And the ideas I fought for in uniform, which I fight for even now, that is unhesitatingly the idea of India.
Okay.
As a soldier, as an Indian, as a citizen, yes, that is my strongest theme, which reflected in uniform and out of uniform. The ideas I write about, they are everyday ideas. They could be an idea which pops into my head as I walk out of the room. My first novel began as an idea when I was taking a jog. They're based on different things. The military comes into it all right, because that's so much part of my psyche. But then there are short stories, there is a novel, there are different articles. All these, honestly, as an author, they are more often than not spur of the moment decisions, which have kind of just popped out of the blue. And these are the ideas that propel me to write.
Brigadier Williams, now you have experience in high altitude warfare in places like Siachen and Dras. Now, did this experience encourage you to, what would I say, ideate and think of as an author? And what are the key ideas that you would like to share with the audience today?
Well, thank you for this question of high altitude warfare, for which I've got a lot of experience both in Siachen and Dras. It's such a joy to share something which a soldier has to go through at altitude at 22,000 feet. People sitting over here don't realize what some of our soldiers have to go through, where people use oxygen to climb, where soldiers have to fight without oxygen, and yet achieve the greatest by capturing the post at an altitude of 22,000 feet at Siachen Glacier. And to defend that post when people like then Brigadier Musharraf, who became the president, the chief of the Pakistan Army and the president of the country, to lead an operation against us at that altitude, and we defeated that operation. So that story needs to be told, and it's been captured in my book, which I co-authored along with Kunal Verma, who was there in your panel a little earlier. The long road to Siachen, the question why. I mean, that story is my personal experiences, what I then, not too young, but yes, as a middle peace officer, had to see and experience. And what inspired me to write that story is to share the stories of those soldiers. What trauma that we go through very silently. It's nothing, after that I served the corporate for many years. It's nothing to do with money. It's nothing to do with allowances. It's a question of that urge to protect the sovereignty of the country, and what we've paid, and at the cost of the lives, is to keep our command together, is to keep our soldiers together. And I have with me in the panel very illustrious soldiers here who are talking to you. Some have lost their limbs. Some are writing stories through other means. That's what is an inspiration that brings to fore. It's not the question of just writing something which everybody does not understand. Even my speaking right now, I'm very passionate about it. I cannot explain because that's to be experienced, and I try to share that in my story format as I've given my books. Thank you.
Colonel Ajay Raina, you have written 24 books. Not a bad feat. I don't know anyone here, perhaps, who has written 24 books. Now, the thing is this, out of which 9 are on Kashmir. Now, in Kashmir's history, as we have been discussing, 1947 onwards, we have seen, the invaders had come. We have read in history, of course. They plundered, they committed atrocities on men and women. And it was the Indian army that saved them, saved the local population. What went wrong after that? That, Kashmiri population turned against the Indian army, and also the fact that in spite of the kind of, I would say, terrorist activities that Kashmir has seen, how is it that the soldier keeps fighting over there? And how would you say that the situation has changed right now?
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, if I were to answer your question in one word, the word is narrative. Now, wars happen once in a decade, once in 2 decades, once in 3 decades. War of narrative goes on and on. So the question is, the population which was saved by Indian Army, part of that population turned against Indian Army after a few decades. Why? I think we'll take a pause. So I'll just paint couple of pictures. First picture is what you said, 47. 1947, 22nd October, invasion of Kashmir Valley happens. Part of a very illustrious battalion, now Fort Jack Reef, General Zorawar Singh's battalion, that time Fort Jack Infantry. Part of it switches over to other side because of whatever reasons. So the plundering starts. So this is a story known to everybody. Now, how it proceeds, there are 2 narratives. Narrative number 1, 22nd, invasion happens. 23rd, they reach Baramulla. They plunder Baramulla for next 3 nights and days and nights. And by doing that, they'll lose a lot of time because their aim is to catch Maharaja alive in Srinagar and make him sign on instrument of accession. Meanwhile, Indian Army lands up on 27th of October, 9:30 in the morning. This is story number 1. Now, this is not the real story. The real story is 22nd at 6:30 they come to Muzaffarabad. They plunder Muzaffarabad. People are sleeping. They don't even know what's happening. Somebody opens gates for them. They plunder. But CEO of the battalion, Colonel Narayan Singh, with 20 people who are on this side of bridge. There's a bridge in Muzaffarabad, Dumail. They hold on. They fight for the whole day. 22nd, they don't allow invaders to come in.
You have to be a little brief, yeah.
Okay. 23rd. They fight a battle called Battle of Gadi. I'm 100% sure nobody here knows, nobody's heard of a Battle of Gadi. I can't speak about it, it is too long a thing to explain. But I request if you can please read. 24th, Uri Bridge is blown up by Dogra army. Now this is happening, 6,000 invaders, 100 soldiers under Brigadier Jindra Singh, who was the chief of staff of Dogra army. 25th, 26th, they fight in Rampur, they fight in Mohra. 27th, at 2:30 in the morning, Brigadier Jindra Singh dies. His last seen with his pistol in his hand is injured. 3 hours later, first vehicle, a Chevrolet car, comes to Baramulla with a Pakistani army officer in Pathan suit. So Baramulla, the first contact is made on 27th October at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. 3 hours later, Indian Army lands up in Srinagar. And 2 o'clock, the CEO of one Sikh, Colonel Rai, he meets invaders on the outskirts of Baramulla face to face. Both sides don't know what's happening with the fog. Now, the story number 1 makes Kashmiris believe, and it's actually made generation of Kashmiris believe, that it was one guy called Makbul Sherwani who stood there. He stopped 6,000 invaders single-handedly while they were raping and plundering for 3 days. Baramulla was plundered, there's no doubt, but it was plundered in a different time zone. So as a Kashmiri student, if you are a Kashmiri, born in 47 or later, in your textbook, it is written that Kashmir was saved only by Maqbool Sherwani and his friends, one. There's a photograph of ladies giving God of Honor to Pandit Nehruji in 48 when war was over. So what do you have to thank Indian Army or Dogras for saving them? They don't even know that who saved them. So this is the reason when things progressed and some leader who had sub-nationalist tendencies, when he exploited those sentiments, made people believe कि इंडिया ने आपके लिए कुछ नहीं किया, जो किया आप खुद ही मरे, खुद ही जिए.
अच्छा.
उसके बाद कुछ और होता गया, फिर ISI आ गई, सब कुछ हो गया. So they picked
Something similar, I think, is going on in Bangladesh also.
It happens everywhere. Yeah,
now,
it happens.
General Cardozo. Now, you see, Major General Cardozo, you were a soldier who shed blood in the 1971 war. You made a huge sacrifice. Looking back, 50 years later, do you think it was worth it? What idea did you fight for?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry I was a little late. I was told it's starting at 2 o'clock. Coming back to your question, of course it was worth it. You ask any soldier at the end of his tenure, was it worth it? I think what is important, ladies and gentlemen, is what you're going to carry away from here. What will you remember? So many people have talked so much about so many things, but we just have half an hour for four of us. So I will be very brief. The first thing I want to tell you when you talk about was it worth it? To a soldier, life is very precious because a soldier lives in the shadow of death, 24/7. Out of the 5 wars we have fought, I fought in 3 wars, so I've seen a lot. The thing is life worth it? Is life, as Abraham Lincoln said, it is not the years in your life that count. It is the life in those years. And in the army, there is nothing that compares to life in the armed forces. There was a brigadier, there was a captain when I was a gentleman cadet, and he said, wars are won or lost in the minds of men before they are won or lost on the ground. He proved this at the Battle of Dogarai. He proved this at the battle. You see, I mean, there are so many stories to tell, but there's not enough time. Please, therefore, take time off and read. Today's generation doesn't read. Please read. I have tried to bring the armed forces closer to the man in the street by my books. Am I focused or am I going?
No, it's okay. We will ask you about the books again later.
All right, okay. So the point is this, yes, it was worth it. It was worth it because what we were told in the academy, the safety, honor, and welfare of your country come first, always and every time. The safety, welfare, and honor of the men you command, the soldiers, come next. You come last, always and every time. But when we, Faujis, retire and come into this world, which is today's India, we find this is stood on its head. Everyone wants himself first, the political party next, and to hell with the country. Please remember, the army, its officers, its soldiers, its JSOs, and the NCOs, we are all dispensable. But the honor of India is not. And therefore, when you ask me, was it worth it? Of course it was worth it. If I had the chance to live my life all over again, I would have joined the army.
Beautiful.
My eldest son followed me into the Gurkhas. So, have I answered your question,
Yes,
ma'am?
thank you. Thank you so much. In fact, in this context, I want to ask Colonel Ajay Singh something. I mean, you have been closely following the Russia-Ukraine war, and your latest book is on Ukraine. Now, when you are looking at the Ukraine war, can I ask whether, how much do you think the idea of revenge and hatred towards your enemy inspired a soldier? I know it's a little...
Yeah. Okay. You're talking about Russia-Ukraine war. Okay.
Russia-Ukraine.
And I will expand it not just of the idea of revenge.
Are
Of course.
putting up a huge fight.
Oh,
There is no
yes,
doubt about
yes.
it.
It's not just revenge, say determination. And if you take a look at it, among the first articles, which incidentally was published in your paper, when the war broke out, like everybody else, one anticipated it's going to be a walkover. Nobody expected the Ukrainians to put up such a fight, which they really did, against tremendous odds. And it surprised most of the world analysts, including the US and others, because the man who was fighting there, the Ukrainian soldier, he was fighting for Kherson, Zaporizhia, what are the places? But you're not fighting for the town. He was fighting for that village 20 kilometers from the town, which was his hometown. So as the defenders, they fought a very good defensive battle. And similarly, from what I'm reading and from one gathers, that same level of motivation was perhaps not there on the Russian side.
Right, yes.
And besides that motivation, the other factor was the training which came in. The training of the Ukrainians and the Russians, it is now on par. In the beginning, there was a lot of discrepancies. And that is why, like has been brought by other speakers, that motivation level, that training level, and that leadership level is what is going to be determining how the soldier fights and what shapes the outcome of the war.
Yes. Brigadier Williams, now since we were talking about Siachen and Dras, where you have been and you have commanded men over there, I mean, how do you keep up the motivation of soldiers over there? And considering a lot of them are from Jammu and Kashmir and they are constantly under the threat of attacks by terrorist attacks, their families are there and we know what these people are capable of. How do you handle a situation like that?
Firstly, motivation. Izzat, if you all have heard of, self-honor. That is the driver of the motivational aspect of a soldier. And having operated with my battalion, the 8th Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry Regiment, which General Dua also had alluded to, we are from the same unit. We feel proud of the fact that despite the fact that all our troops are from the Jammu and Kashmir region, including Ladakh, all our troops. And after terrorism broke up 30 years ago, I remember the change that I saw when I came back from Siachen and when I was in Kashmir and was posted there. There was a sea change which had taken place and terrorism had taken off. Our troops are from that area. They have to go home on leave, whether they were sitting in Kashmir or whether we are sitting in Trivandrum. But when they go back on leave, they are under threat. And it's 30 years even now. There are so many examples. So you've got to motivate them so much that despite the fact which we had talked about a little earlier, that throwing stones, pelting stones, taking up guns, the terrorism, joining the units, and they are first-class soldiers, is a responsibility of the commander at every level to make sure that his motivational level remains by making yourself being the first one to go through those processes of danger. And in Kargil war, you saw what happened. There were young officers. Most casualties were the young officers and the young men who died because they led from the front. And when you lead from the front, there is nothing else that matters because the troops are with you. You are responsible for them. And when they go, They tell their stories to their families. And there is, for many years, not a single soldier of the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry was ever targeted by the terrorists. Never, except in 1993. After that, there was no such thing because they were from home and hearth. But gradually, things have changed now. And therefore, the challenges of leadership are even more today as probably what they were in my time. But motivation drives that individual to battle, to war, without caring for his own safety.
Colonel Raina, since you have written so much on Kashmir, would you say things have changed, and especially Article 370 post that, and has the life of the soldier become easier in Jammu and Kashmir now?
370, like General Dillon spoke in the morning, it had no benefits to the population at large. I am a localite, I am from J&K, it didn't benefit me. Though it denied me many benefits, like my daughter getting married outside and losing property rights. Okay, 370 abrogation or part of abrogation is seen by many as a switch which was turned down or turned off and everything went honky and dory. No. General Dua will bear with me, it's been a long process. 1 year before 370 was taken away, first proper panchayat elections were held in J&K. So grassroots leadership, that democracy started. Many levels things happened. Money laundering was stopped. The financing of stone pelting was taken care of. Those who said Tirange ko kanda koi nahi dega, they were detained or kept somewhere. So what happened? It was a process which was very deliberate, though it happened on 5th of August. But the action started much before that, and actions continue to carry on after that. So net result is that today, Valley, if you go to Kashmir, as a Fauji, people know me because I generally come on certain medias. Earlier, I used to go and stay inside the safety of cantonment after retirement. Now I go and stay in houseboats and hotels openly. So that change has come. As far as the army is concerned, army was operating earlier the same way they are operating now. What has probably changed change on 370 on ground is people have realized the futility of fighting a losing war and losing 50,000 odd young men in Kashmir. So the cooperation from civil side, where you are now starting getting live intelligence, meaningful intelligence. So that has made our operations slightly easy. But the threat of Jawan, because जिस गोली के ऊपर नाम लिखा है ना, वो concept है. Level of alertness is same. There is no laxity. For a Jawan in Kashmir, he is as alert or as under stress or as motivated as he was when things were bad. Things on ground have changed, and of course, when things change, it augurs well for everybody. So that of course, is a positive change which has happened, which needs to be acknowledged.
General Cardozo, if I can ask you to tell our audience a little bit about your experience of the 1971 war, about your battalions specifically.
I think I'd first like to repeat what Brigadier Williams said. Why do men fight in war? Are you going to ask me that subsequently? No. Can I talk about it now?
You can always answer it here as well. No problem.
Men fight because they are led well. The motto is, follow me. Leading men into battle is a unique privilege given to very few. And the leaders and the led do not know whether they'll come back alive. And therefore, leadership has to be of a very high level. And leadership falls on the shoulders, as he said, on young officers. He doesn't say, "Tum aage jao, main aa raha hu." He says, "Mere piche move, follow me." And he's there right in front, facing the maximum danger. And the men, seeing their officer in front, they follow him blindly to hell and back, because they know that their officer is right there in front. The first battle, I'm from the Gorkha Rifles. We used the Gorkha weapon, the kukri, and we cut off 32 heads. We decimated the Pakistani opposition. After that, they didn't have the guts to face us. But in the last battle, in the Battle of Sylhet, we were tasked to capture Sylhet because the corps commander, General Sagat Singh, said, the brigade which is in Sylhet has gone for the defense of Dhaka. There is nobody there. He was wrong. The brigade had not moved. Another brigade had reinforced them, and the Sylhet garrison was there. We were 384, launched for the capture of Sylhet. We started the war with 18 officers. At the end of the war, only 7 survived. 4 got killed and 7 got wounded. But in that battle, we were told, there's nobody there. We were fighting for our lives. We fought the enemy for 9 days, 9 nights, without food, without water, with diminished ammunition, with no medical facilities. And then we were saved, perhaps, by the BBC. The British Broadcasting Corporation, you see, the Indian government did a very good thing. They allowed, because we had nothing to hide. The correspondents were with our men, sleeping with them, eating with them. But the correspondent made a mistake. In the broadcast, he said, a brigade of Gurkhas has landed at Sylhet. We were half a battalion. As I said, we fought for 9 days and 9 nights. And then they came to surrender. The CO, Colonel Harolekar, a very brave, competent CO, he said, if they come to know we are just 300, at that time 352, they might change their mind to surrender. He said, go back. Carry on with the fighting. I've got no orders to accept your surrender. But they had heard the broadcast and they said, can we talk to the brigadier? He said, the brigadier has given no orders. You come tomorrow. Then we phoned up the brigadier, radioed the brigadier, please come and take the surrender. He came the next day in a chopper and they said, is chopper mein kaun aaya? He said, I have come. He said, are you not here? He says, no. Where were you? I'm 100 miles away. Then what is here? Half a Gurkha battalion. And they got the shock of their lives. They were all talking about, hey, kaisa ho sakta hai? We got the shock of our lives. Well, 3 brigadiers. I don't know what you know about battalions. A battalion consists of 1,000 men. A brigade consists of 3 battalions. So 1 brigade is 3,000 men. 2 brigades is 6,000 men. Sylhet garrison, 2,000 men. They were 8,000. 3 brigadiers, 2 full colonels, 170 officers, 290 JCOs, and 8,000 surrendered to us. We were then just 352.
Sir, tell us how you lost your leg.
No.
That's a great story.
No, we don't talk about ourselves. And I don't think so. Thank you so much, Yendua. You're very kind. But I think this audience wants to know more about
Please,
India.
please. We insist. All of us insist.
Inspirational story.
Very unique.
No, it's just that I stepped on a mine. My leg blew off. It was in a disgusting state. I wanted to get rid of it. So I asked my batman, Johnny, to cut it off.
Closer.
Cut it off. He said, Saab, Nepali mein, main kar no sakta na, Saab. Saab, I cannot do that. Wait for the doctor to come. So I said, okay, give it to me. Now, people have made a big, I think I'm getting a lot of credit for what I don't deserve. I didn't hack off my leg. I didn't cut it off. It was just hanging by a few fleshy strands of flesh. I just cut it off, held on. But I think people have made a big issue of it. That's why I don't want to speak about it, because I think I've been given a lot of credit I don't deserve.
But it requires guts to take your own kukri and cut off your own leg. Thank you.
So
you're the leader.
So that is the story of the 4th Battalion, the 5th Gurkha Rifles Frontier Force, which led the first heliborne attack in the Indian Army, and we captured a force 20 times our size. I think the battalion needs credit for that, and the CO needs credit for that. Is that okay?
Thank you so much for telling us. Well, if I can get back to Colonel Singh's latest passion, if I can say.
Okay.
I mean, you're following very, as I said, the Ukraine war very closely. Which way do you think it's headed?
You know, I've been so sidetracked by General Cardozo's lovely account of the 1971 war, which ended in 13 days, my mind is there. But I'll go back to Ukraine now. Ukraine going on for 538 days as of now, and where is it going to end? You see, the way I look at it, the Ukrainian offensive is kind of petering out. Forget all the media hype about what a great offensive it is, and it is going nowhere. It's been calculated if they go at the pace which they're going right now, it's going to take them 104 years to regain all their territory. Now, if you look at Russian doctrines, their doctrines hinge on the fact they always absorb an enemy offensive and they launch a very vehement counterattack, which decimates the enemy. Moscow, Stalingrad, they follow the same concept. The way I look at it, by around October, November, when the offensive has petered out, the Russians would launch the offensive, perhaps even in the direction of Kyiv from Belarus. The indicators are there. We'll put the Ukrainians totally on the back foot. They may go up all the way to the line of the Dnieper River, taking off almost all of eastern Ukraine. The war may not end, because there's no midpoint for negotiations. But that line which they occupy could well become the line of contact, the LOC between Russia and Ukraine, and ipso facto between Russia and the rest of Europe. I see an LOC coming up in Europe.
Okay. Brigadier Williams, now since we were talking about Siachen and Dras, how long do you think the no war, no peace situation is likely to continue? Will there ever be peace? Will there be any troops reduction? And what do you think, you have been writing about, I think also sustainability of that particular area. What are your views about that?
See, when I was in the uniform so many years ago, my idea also was that there is no question of any posts being withdrawn. Having captured Bana Top, having been associated at those altitudes in Siachen and Dras, I just felt that the only answer is once the army has reached, it has to stay. Then I come to the sustainability piece, post-retirement and moving out. And I realized that there was this concept of no war, no peace. There was this concept of Siachen becoming a garden of peace, which was initiated in the early 2000s or mid-2000s. There is merit to it. Not that we can withdraw from Siachen, but there is, of course, the present leadership would be the best to give a response. But my take is, and very few of us from the army have been on those altitudes of 22,000 feet. Let me be honest. There are strategic posts which need to be occupied. There is a strategic reserve which needs to be built. We are talking about technology. We are talking about the latest gadgetry, the equipment and the sensors and the deep penetration as far as sight is concerned. And a mobility that you need to have to reach to the contact point at the earliest. Keeping all that in mind, in today's warfare, we've got to build in that strength to see how you can reduce the troops somewhere and hold the troops somewhere to make sure that when they are required, they are there on the spot before the Pakistanis can reach. And I must share with you, the Pakistanis' roads of communication are much closer to Siachen posts as compared to ours. From Bana Top, I could see the green belt of Pakistan. You can see it. But at the same time, we've also got to make sure that we do not take any hasty steps. It has to be a deliberate exercised before a decision is taken on reduction and on withdrawal.
Okay, I'm being asked to wrap up, so one last question to all of you, just one question. Okay, the thing is, sorry, no, give me 2 seconds, just this question has to be asked. How to make the educated Indian youth join the army? This question is to everyone, and so it has to be brief, a short one.
After the launch of Chandrayaan yesterday, a lot of people are joining ISRO. After the victory in Kargil, a lot of young people joined the army. I'm not saying we got to fight a war.
So
what I'm saying is make
flashback.
awareness of the army as the way of life and what it offers you and what it makes you offer the nation. The best will join then.
Yeah, and thrash Pakistan well and proper, I guess.
Okay.
I would like to just make a mention of yesterday's article, which has come, of course, of Agniveers, the M-Tech and the B-Techs joining. We got not to be excited about it, let me be honest with you. It's the man behind the gun and not the education. It's a question is, the skill sets that are required have to be seen more importantly than the education level that we are talking and hyping it up by M-Tech guys and B-Tech guys coming for Agniveer. Be careful. Thank you.
Please. Yeah, it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, what sort of a life do you want to live? What do you want to be remembered for? For me, and for most of us in uniform, we joined because life is an adventure or it is nothing. And therefore, we don't have to look for adventure in uniform. Adventure comes looking for us all the time. Every day is an adventure if you're on the battlefield, if you're on the line of control. So, what do you want to, what is it that motivates you to do what you do? My message is, do what you love. Join the army.
And Colonel,
Love what you do. Join the army.
that's a very
Never
nice message.
be afraid. Join the army.
That's gorgeous. That's
Never give up. Join the army. Life has no equal as to a life lived in the armed forces.
that's
God bless them. Thank you.
that's inspiring. Colonel Raina, very short. Sorry, I mean they are just.
There are many categories of people who join army for various reasons. Money, glamour, adventure. I belong to a category where money never matter. But to all of us, what matters is there's been a constant degradation of forces, deliberate. That needs to be stopped. People will join. There are people who are not bothered about money, nothing, but they see something happening which is unfortunate. We'll talk about
I'm
it later.
certain that can be sorted.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.